Imagine achieving the absolute highest echelons of global fame before you are old enough to legally drink, only to spend the next 2 decades systematically dismantling the very machinery that made you a star. This is the extraordinary paradox of a British actress who refused to be molded by the predictable demands of the studio system, choosing instead to forge a path defined by fierce independence, intellectual rigor, and an unwavering commitment to complex truths. She transitioned from a bubbly teenager kicking a football on a London screen to a corseted aristocrat navigating the treacherous social waters of 19th-century England, and finally to a fiercely vocal advocate for female autonomy in an industry notorious for its exploitation. Her journey is not merely a chronicle of box office successes and red carpet appearances, but a profound exploration of identity, the burdens of beauty, and the relentless pursuit of artistic integrity. To understand her career is to understand the evolution of the modern female lead, an artist who learned early on that true power lies not in conforming to expectations, but in boldly redefining them. The genesis of this remarkable trajectory began in the quiet, affluent suburb of Teddington in southwest London, where she was born in the spring of 1985. She was immersed in the arts from her very first breath, born to a father who was a working actor on British television, and a mother who was a successful playwright. The dinner table conversations in her childhood home were not about mundane daily routines, but about scripts, character motivations, and the intricate mechanics of storytelling. This environment normalized the creative process, stripping away the mystique of the acting profession and replacing it with a deep, practical respect for the craft. However, her early childhood was not without significant challenges. She struggled severely with dyslexia, a learning difficulty that made the traditional academic environment a source of immense frustration. Reading and writing were arduous tasks, and she often felt isolated from her peers. It was acting that became her sanctuary, a realm where her inability to process text on a page was irrelevant, replaced by her extraordinary ability to read human emotions and express complex feelings without the barrier of written words. Her entry into the professional world was gradual and grounded in the realities of the British television industry. She appeared in minor roles in various television episodes and small independent films, learning the technical aspects of hitting marks and finding the light. Her parents were fiercely protective, ensuring that her education remained a priority and instilling in her a grounded sense of reality, reminding her constantly that acting was a job, not a definition of her inherent worth. Her breakthrough arrived with a project that perfectly captured the cultural zeitgeist of the early 2002. The film was a vibrant exploration of cultural clash and female empowerment, focusing on a young woman of Indian descent who defies her traditional family to play football. She was cast as the white, middle-class teammate who harbors her own secret rebellions. The role required her to undergo intense physical training, learning to play football with a level of authenticity that grounded the film in reality. When the movie was released, it became a massive cultural phenomenon, resonating deeply with audiences worldwide. Her performance was widely praised for its naturalism and emotional depth, instantly elevating her from an unknown teenager to a highly sought-after talent. The massive success of that football film caught the attention of the biggest machine in Hollywood, leading to her casting in a colossal pirate adventure that would catapult her into the stratosphere of global superstardom. She was cast as the virtuous daughter of a colonial governor, a character who begins the narrative as a symbol of restrictive societal norms, but ultimately evolves into a fierce leader who commands her own ship. The production was a logistical nightmare, shot on the open ocean and plagued by weather delays, yet it was precisely this authenticity that gave the film its undeniable charm. Her character's journey from a sheltered aristocrat to a pirate king was a masterclass in physical acting, requiring her to perform complex stunts and convey a fierce independence that resonated with modern audiences. The film shattered box office records, becoming one of the highest-grossing movies of the decade. Suddenly, her face was on billboards from Tokyo to New York. The sheer scale of the fame was overwhelming, but she handled the intense scrutiny with a remarkable level of detachment, often expressing bewilderment at the hysteria surrounding her, a grounded reaction that endeared her to the public. Rather than resting on the laurels of a massive blockbuster franchise, she immediately pivoted to a project that would test her dramatic mettle. She collaborated with a visionary young director to adapt a beloved classic novel of manners, taking on the iconic role of a sharp-witted, fiercely independent young woman navigating the complex marriage markets of 19th-century England. The preparation was exhaustive, involving months of dialect coaching and posture training. She brought a fresh, vibrant energy to the role, stripping away the stuffy veneer that had defined previous adaptations. The film was a critical triumph, and her performance earned her a nomination for the highest honor in the American film industry, making her one of the youngest actresses ever to receive such a nod. The dawn scene, where her character walks across a misty field, became an instantly iconic moment in cinema history. This collaboration continued with a sweeping, tragic epic set against the backdrop of the Second World War. She played a talented but misunderstood young woman whose single, fateful lie destroys the lives of her sister and the man they both love. The visual centerpiece of the movie was a breathtaking, emerald green silk dress that became a cultural phenomenon. The performance required her to navigate a complex emotional arc, transitioning from a jealous teenager to a hardened nurse working in the brutal conditions of a wartime hospital, proving she was a profound artist capable of anchoring a morally ambiguous narrative. As her career progressed, she actively sought out roles that challenged her psychologically, deliberately avoiding the safe, romantic lead parts that the studio system was eager to offer. She took on the daunting task of portraying an 18th-century duchess, whose beauty made her a favorite at the court of Versailles, but whose relentless gambling ultimately led to her ruin. The role was a grueling exploration of female entrapment, highlighting the lack of agency women possessed in a society where they were treated as political bargaining chips. She immersed herself in the history of the period, studying the intricate politics of the French court. The film was a visually stunning, but emotionally harrowing experience, requiring her to convey a deep, internalized sorrow beneath the heavy makeup. This commitment to portraying the messy, painful realities of women's history became a defining characteristic of her career. Her willingness to take risks led her to collaborate with one of the most intellectually demanding directors in modern cinema, stepping into the role of a pioneering psychoanalyst who was both a patient and a colleague of Carl Jung. The role required her to shed all vanity, embracing a raw performance that explored the character's complex sexuality and her eventual tragic descent into madness, proving she was unafraid to inhabit characters who were difficult and entirely devoid of traditional Hollywood glamour. The pursuit of artistic challenge continued with a highly unconventional adaptation of a classic literary tragedy, focusing on the ill-fated Russian aristocrat who ruins her life for the sake of a passionate affair. The director chose to stage the film as if it were taking place on a theater stage, utilizing elaborate, rotating sets to create a sense of claustrophobia that mirrored the protagonist's trapped existence. She brought a frantic, desperate energy to the character, capturing the tragic inevitability of her downfall with a heartbreaking authenticity. As she entered her 30s, her career choices became even more deliberate, shifting towards ensemble casts and historical narratives that highlighted the often overlooked contributions of women. She joined a star-studded cast to portray a brilliant female codebreaker working at Bletchley Park during the Second World War, a woman who helped crack the Enigma machine, but was ultimately marginalized due to her gender. The role was a quiet, deeply internalized performance, requiring her to convey the frustration of intellectual suppression. Her decision to take a supporting role in such a high-profile project was a testament to her maturity as an artist, recognizing that the strength of a film lies in its collective ensemble. Her fascination with complex women later led her to portray one of the most important French authors of the 20th century, a writer who fiercely defended her independence and refused to be constrained by patriarchal norms. The film was a lush exploration of the author's early life and her awakening to her own sexual and creative freedom, a triumphant return to the kind of fiercely independent cinema that defined her early career. Beyond her cinematic achievements, her relationship with the fashion industry has been a complex and ultimately transformative aspect of her public life. She became the face of one of the most prestigious luxury fashion houses in the world, serving as the muse for their iconic fragrances and haute couture collections. Her style, characterized by a chic, effortless elegance, made her a perennial favorite on red carpets. However, she has always maintained a deeply adversarial relationship with the very industry that celebrates her. She has been incredibly vocal about the toxic beauty standards perpetuated by fashion magazines, famously refusing to allow her photographs to be retouched to hide her natural body shape. She has spoken extensively about the damaging impact of digital manipulation on the self-esteem of young girls. Her decision to pose topless for a controversial magazine cover, with her face entirely obscured and her body completely unretouched, was a deliberate statement against the objectification of women. This fierce independence extended deeply into her personal life and her approach to her career. She has been a prominent voice in the movement to eradicate the male gaze from cinema, arguing passionately that women's bodies have been historically commodified for the visual pleasure of male audiences. She has famously stated that she will no longer accept roles that require her to play a victim of sexual violence, explaining that the sheer volume of such narratives had become exploitative. Her feminism is deeply practical, rooted in a desire to create tangible change, and highlights the gender pay gap and the lack of female directors in Hollywood. This commitment to her principles extended to her approach to motherhood and her marriage. She met a musician at a party, and the two quickly formed a deep bond, eventually marrying in a private ceremony in the south of France. They have built a life together that is fiercely protected from the public eye, prioritizing normalcy and the well-being of their two daughters. When she became a mother, she made a radical decision that is almost unheard of in the upper echelons of global stardom, largely stepping away from the traditional promotional machinery of the film industry. She refused to participate in extensive press tours and strictly limited her working hours to ensure she could be present for her children. As the entertainment landscape shifted with the rise of streaming platforms and the golden age of prestige television, she made a highly strategic transition to the small screen. She starred in a critically acclaimed spy thriller series that allowed her to explore the murky world of international intelligence. Playing a seasoned operative forced to confront the ghosts of her past, she delivered a performance of remarkable depth, capturing the exhaustion and fierce maternal instinct of a woman who has sacrificed everything for her country. Her transition to television was a masterstroke, demonstrating her adaptability and her understanding that the most compelling narratives for women were increasingly being written for the episodic format. Her recent cinematic choices have continued to reflect a deep commitment to exploring the darker, more complex aspects of the human condition, often focusing on true crime and the hidden lives of extraordinary women. She took on the role of a relentless detective in a gripping historical thriller based on the hunt for one of America's first serial killers, navigating the deeply sexist environment of the 1920s police force. Her performance was a masterclass in quiet determination, capturing the frustration of a woman whose intellect is constantly underestimated. The legacy of this extraordinary artist is defined by a relentless pursuit of authenticity in an industry built on illusion. She has survived the treacherous transition from child star to adult actress, a path that has destroyed the careers of countless others. She has navigated the intense pressures of global fame and the deeply ingrained sexism of the Hollywood system, emerging as a fiercely empowered advocate for change. She has redefined what it means to be a leading lady, proving that a woman's value on screen is not determined by her youth or her willingness to conform to the male gaze, but by her intelligence and her courage to inhabit the messy realities of the human experience. Her journey is a powerful reminder that true fame is fleeting, but true art, and the courage required to create it, endures forever. She has not just acted in the story of modern cinema, she has actively directed her own narrative, ensuring that her legacy will be one of unyielding strength and an uncompromising commitment to the truth.